Have you ever watched a little kid trying to do something really simple? And so you walk over and help them, and the minute you start to help, they just go, "Ah!" Have you ever experienced that?
Yes.
Right? They're like trying to button up the snaps on their jean jacket. They're trying to not even tie their shoes, but pull the Velcro over their shoes. They've like got their shoe on, but their heel is like crushing the back of the shoe, so they're wearing their shoes like slippers. And you go over to help them, and they're just despondent when you try to help them. I want to do it. It's kind of challenging, actually, at times, to watch that happen. It brings stuff up in us. Because we're like, let me help you. This is so simple. Let me help you do this thing. Wow, what's that?
I'm getting triggered.
God bless you. God bless you. It's one thing to watch that happen with little kids, but what about when that happens with adults? What about when you watch a friend or a family member or a parent or a coworker make the same mistake over and over and over and over again and be utterly unwilling to receive any help? You're watching someone make that same mistake in their relationships and you go, your life would be better if you would just listen to what I have to. What are the ways that we respond when we watch that happen in the lives of other people? I feel like the most natural thing is we want to fix it. We want to find a way to fix it. Watching other people make the same mistakes over and over again actually in some ways makes something rise up in us. We go, I not just want to fix it, I kind of need to fix it. And so I'm just going to find little ways to get involved here, or little reactions to have, and then maybe people don't listen to our advice, or things go badly again. We're kind of frustrated, if we're honest. It becomes like a frustrating thing to watch people make the same mistake over and over again, especially when it's impacting my life. We're just so right when we diagnose what's going wrong in somebody else's life. We're just so right. One time I was having some really bad stomach pain. I have this low-grade chronic gallbladder issue called biliary dyskinesia, where my gallbladder doesn't spit the enzymes out fast enough. And so sometimes on a few Thanksgivings, God help me this year, when I'm eating way too much Thanksgiving food, I will have debilitating pain in the right side of the stomach. I've had to go to the ER twice over the last 8 years because the pain is just excruciating. You're already thinking of ways I can solve my problem. The last time this happened was 4 or so years ago. I went to urgent care and saw a doctor. The doctor was like, oh, this might be appendicitis, it's too high, what is it? I'm sitting there in a room with the doctor, and the pain is just really becoming out of control. And it starts making my breathing shallow, so I'm taking shallow breaths, and I start to feel like I'm losing sensation in my hands and in my feet. And I can start to feel myself tightening up and closing. I'm losing control of my extremities. And it starts to make me panic. And the doctor across the room recognizes what's happening. My breathing is too shallow. I need to chill out, take some deep breaths, and then I won't become like a little crustacean. It's on this. And he just goes, breathe, breathe, breathe. You're not breathing. And I'm just panicking. I'm overwhelmed with fear. I'm panicking. I'm now all the way up in the wall. And he just thrusts us up. It's exasperating. Taking me up. Now, the doctor was totally right. I'm also never, ever going to go to that doctor. Because he was right, but I was afraid. And so he shattered our relationship. He shattered the doctor-patient relationship. That's one thing when that happens with the doctor and patient, but what about when we do something like that in an intimate relationship that we have? Or a long-term friendship that we have? Or with a child? And our response to their moments of need, even though we might be right, breaks our relationship. How do we respond when we see that someone else is screwing up their life? What do we do when we see someone get it wrong over and over again? These are the questions we're going to be asking today. We're in the middle of a sermon series, just walking exegetically through Paul's letter to the Galatians. It's been a wonderful time. We're in the home stretch. Wow, chapter 6. Here we come. We're going to be in chapter 6, verses 1 through 5 today. There's all sorts of contextual information that you might want to know about the book of Galatians. You can find them in our chapter 1 and chapter 2 sermons online. You can go to Manhattan.org/sermons and find all the audio files there. All you really need to know for today is that the Galatians are first century Christians living in the Roman province of Galatia. They've come under the influence of a teaching that's telling them that they have to get a bunch of things right in order to live well with God and other people, and it's made them moralistic jerks towards one another. And Paul is writing a letter to them, trying to get them out from under the burden of this ungospel teaching. And in our text today, he's trying to correct a pattern of behavior that's shown up in the community where people don't know how to help each other anymore because they've been so concerned for so long with getting everything right. I'm not going to have the text up on the screen. Open up your Bibles, church Bibles, incredible. Galatians chapter 6, verse 1 to 5. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each one will have to bear his own load. People make bad decisions and screw up their lives. We do it, other people do it, everybody does it. People make bad decisions and change the course of the trajectory of their lives. Paul is talking about this in Galatians chapter 6, verse 1, when he says, if anyone is caught in any transgression, the Greek words used here for caught in transgression are prolombano and peripatoma. Peripatoma is the word for transgression. It carries with it the idea of making a false step, of like making a blunder. It almost carries the idea of a mistake that was made that puts you outside of a boundary. It's an active term, but it also isn't like a vindictive term. It's not a scheming term. It's like, I made a mistake. I did it. It was my choice. I'm not like sloughing off responsibility on something else, but I made a mistake. I stepped over something. I blundered in some way. And so Paul determines an active portion, but he also then determines a passive portion to the ways that we screw up our life. Because he says some people step into these transgressions, they make transgressions, but then they're caught in them, Paul says. They become caught in a transgression, which has a profoundly passive sense to it. You actively did something that ended up proving to be a mistake, but once you've done it, you're now caught in it. And it has lasting negative effects on you that are ongoing in your life. Paul says we make bad decisions that screw up our life because we make mistakes, but then there's a passive element where the cost of the mistake that we made becomes outsized over time as we become caught in the effects of that bad decision bearing bad fruit in our lives. This is hard to watch. It's hard to watch when it happens in the lives of other people. It's hard for other people to watch it happen in our lives. Because little decisions that are made over time that just are innocuous mistakes at one moment, over time they snowball into liturgies in our lives and patterns of behavior and habits that we have that sort of set our future if we can't get out from under the trap that we've been caught in because of these mistakes that we've made. Right? It's difficult. We watch this happen in the lives of other people. Right? You sit down with someone and they go from relationship to relationship, and every time you talk to them about the relationships that they're in, they're hypercritical of the person that they're in a relationship with. And like the first couple times you have that conversation with them, you go, I get it. Things are hard in relationships, or maybe they're not conversation where they show up and are just hypercritical of their spouse or partner or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever it is, you start to go like, if you keep being this hypercritical, you're going to ruin every relationship you're in. No one can stand up under a hypercritical lens all the time. Or watching someone jump from job to job over and over again, or things aren't turning out in the way that they want to in their employment situations. And there's always a story about that coworker who ruined things, or that boss who wasn't a great boss. And again, you look at the isolated incidents and you're like, oh, I'm sure you're right. It's that those things weren't perfect. But after the 6th or 7th or 8th conversation, it's like something's going on with you. And it's hard to watch you do this over and over again. It's really difficult to watch this happen in the lives of other people. And so we start thinking about, like, what does this person need? What does this person need in my response to them? And the reality is that when people make bad decisions, what they need is a gentle and helpful response. What people need when they make bad decisions in their lives is they need a gentle and helpful response. Because gentleness is something that's truly helpful when someone's found themselves caught in the trap of a bad decision in their life can restore them. They need to be restored. Paul says this in the end of verse 1. He says, if anyone is caught in a transgression, you who are spiritual should restore them in a spirit of gentleness. Because people don't just need correction when something has gone wrong in their lives. They don't just need to be told how they got it wrong. They don't need any of those things. What they need is to be fully restored as a person. Because when someone is caught in the trap of something bad that happened in their life, something didn't go right in their life, and they feel shame and guilt and condemnation about that, their whole person is under the burden of that. And what they need to be is restored. They don't just need to be corrected. They don't just need to be fixed. They need to be restored in themselves from the way that experience has made them less than they're actually called to be. And gentleness does that, alongside something that is truly helpful. We've been in situations in our own life when things haven't gone right. Maybe it was our fault. Maybe we did something we should have done. Maybe it really wasn't our fault. Maybe life just dealt us some hand or we're struggling with this thing. Or someone else made a bad decision that impacted us. And we've gone to people for help and we've shared our situation with them and they've responded terribly. We've all experienced that, haven't we? I feel like there are like 3 ways that people can respond poorly when we go to them in times when we need help. Sometimes we need the lecturer. We show up and we tell someone what's wrong in our lives and they're like, let me tell you all the things that you did wrong, and let me tell you everything you need to know to never do it again, and let me tell you everything you need to know in order to start getting it right going forward. Right? And it's just been so wonderful, hasn't it? When we go to people and we're like, I need help, and they're like, let me lecture it. Hasn't that been great? A kinder response, but still not really helpful if we're honest about it, is the response of the fixer. We come to someone with something that's going wrong in their lives, and they're just full of this anxiety that something's going wrong in our lives. We're like, how can I fix this for you right now? Let me fix it. This is what you need to do to fix it. I'll fix it. I've got some free time. Do you need me to insert myself in a situation? Right? And it's like, what's going on in you that you need so badly for me to be okay? Why do you need me to fit your definition of okay? Why is this about you now and your need to fix things? Anyone ever experienced that? Anyone ever done that? Oh, God bless you. God bless you. The third is the eraser. Minimizer of the problem. The person for whom something's going on here that they can't deal with the fact that something's not going right in their life. And so it's just minimized or explained away, or oh, that's not that big of a deal, or oh, that's life. Little things to just scrub away. Those things have been so helpful, haven't they? Just incredible. You know, we see so clearly in our own lives how profoundly unhelpful those things have been. And if we see that so clearly in our own lives, why are we so bad at offering to other people in their moments of need something different? Why do we so easily take on the role of the lecturer, the fixer, the eraser, when other people come to us for help, when we know how unhelpful it's been when people have done that to us? Paul says that we don't give gentle and helpful responses to people because we forget all the times when we needed help. Paul says that's why. Paul says you don't give people the response that they need when they need help because you think you're something. This is Galatians chapter 6, verse 3. For if anyone thinks he is something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. Right? Anyone who thinks, I'm some self-sufficient, did it myself, got it right all the time person. Paul's like, that's why we don't give people the responses that we need. This is just profoundly untrue about our lives, of course. We've received all sorts of help to get to where we are. Right? I mean, as humans, I suppose this is a debatable question, but at what age are we actually even remotely able to claim to be self-sufficient? I mean, we at least spend the first 3, 4, 5 years of our lives utterly dependent on other people. I mean, literally carried through life in our early years. We have so many other things that we go through life that we just need help to get through. We need the help of friends to make it through school. We need help of coworkers to do our jobs, or whatever it is. Our lives are the stories of people who have helped us. And yet, we just default into this way of thinking that just eliminates that in my picture of myself and says, actually, I've done everything myself. I'm a self-made person. I got all this stuff right. And, oh yeah, sure. If you really push me, I had some help here, I had some help here. But mostly the story of my life is the story of all the things that I did right myself. This forgetfulness is a profound self-deception. Right? That's why Paul says in verse 3, for if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. We're lying from ourselves about the help that we've received. And it makes us bad helpers of other people. Because we don't approach people in their moments of need anymore as someone who's full of the humility of saying, I remember the last time I was in that spot. I remember how frequently in my life I've been in that place. And I am full of the memory of the kinds of help that I received that was actually helpful for me. And so I'm ready to help you in a way that's about you and what you need, and not me and what I'm ready to do. And all of that is robbed from us and the people that we're trying to help, and we're self-deceived about how much help we've actually gotten in our lives. Paul is trying to save us from this self-deception when he says in verse 2, to be gentle, to restore them in a spirit of gentleness. Because someone who shows up to help with a gentle spirit got that gentleness and acts out that gentleness because they're not deceived about how much help they received in their life. Paul says if you want to protect yourself, like Paul says, be careful when you help someone, lest you be tempted. Because helping somebody else all of a sudden becomes a temptation for us to forget all the times we needed help. That's how we stumble. Paul's not saying here, oh my gosh, someone stepped into a transgression. Be careful that you don't mimic them in that transgression. Stay away, be careful. Paul's saying, you are so self-deceived and forgetful about all the help that you need. Be careful that you don't stumble when you help someone by lording your own self-deceived image over them. That's the temptation here. And Paul says, want to avoid that temptation? Find gentleness before you go to help somebody. Don't help somebody if you can't show up in a gentle spirit. The real problem here with this self-deception that we have is that it keeps us from asking for help that we need in future times. Right? The biggest problem with living life through the worldview of my life is about all the stuff that I got right and I don't need any help, is that it immediately turns me into a hypocrite. That's the biggest problem. Right? A hypocrite, someone who's lying internally. Their self is a lie. Because none of us have ever gotten it right all the time and we're never going to. And this hypocrisy ends up clouding the truth of our whole lives, which is that we need help. We needed help back there, we need help now, and we're going to need more help in the future. And then it makes us unable to bring the things that other people actually need when they need help. Because we're not honest about the help that we need and the help that we received. And this is just the world that we live in. The world that we live in thinks that asking for help is like a dirty thing almost. It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of shame. Right? Somewhere in the world, I'm not exactly sure where it is in the chronology of growing up in this world, but at some point, being an adult means joining everyone else in the lived fiction that we don't need any help. To show up in so many places in this world and say, "Hi, my name's Adam. I need help. What's your name?" I mean, to do that, you'd just be looked down on immediately. You'd be full of guilt. You'd be full of shame and condemnation. People would look around and go, "Something's wrong with that person." That's the world that we live in. But the world that we live in is full of people that need help. God is full of people that need help. And those people that need help from people that know they've received help, so they can be honest about the fact that they've received help and they extend just to help other people. But the people who are going to do the helping are not honest about the help that they've received, and so we're just trapped in this cycle where nobody can help one another because nobody can admit that I need help. We're just stuck in it over and over and over again. And the cost of this is so high. It's the difference between finding out how to live in a satisfying relationship and spending my whole life ruining relationship after relationship after relationship because I can't ask help in my relationships. I can't ask for help. It's the difference between feeling like I haven't lived up to something that's just weighing on me and crushing me. This thing that I needed to be true about me, but it's not. And I can't ask for help in it. I can't be honest about it to other people. So my life is spent under the crushing weight and burden of that. The cost is just person after person after person after person just dragging their feet. One weighty, brutalized step after another. Making the same mistakes over and over again until we just collapse in the grave. We need somebody to snap that. I need somebody to end that cycle. If just one person could say, "I need help. I need help. And I really need it. This is what's actually going on in my life. I feel really bad about it, but I need help. I can't carry it on my own. I need somebody to carry this with me. I really want to be someone who is able to carry the weight of this by myself, but the reality is I'm not able to. I need help. If just one person could do that. If one person could say, "I need help," they would just snap that whole imprisonment cycle. Not just unleashing in their own life the ability for somebody else to come in and help them, but shining the hot rays of the truth of the sun into the midst of all the lies and self-deception that don't just exist in our lives, but exist all over the world. A world that's self-deceived about the help that it needs. If just one person could be able to speak the truth about that, it would just begin to dispel cloud after cloud after cloud, not only in our lives, but in our neighbors' lives, but in our communities' lives, and in the life of the world. And you would just all of a sudden be able to see for miles. We'd see for miles about what's actually going on in my life. What's actually going on in here. What's actually going on in the lives of the people we would just God, the gift of sight. We would see so many things if just one person could say, "I need help." And into our need for That's our desperate, desperate need. Jesus showed up and said, I'll be the one to save that account. Jesus said, I'll confess my need, so that everyone else can be free from this prison of not being able to tell the truth about where they need help. You know, who carried Jesus' cross? You know, there's different data on that in the Gospels. John chapter 19, verse 17 tells us that Jesus carried his own cross. John 19:17 says, carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull. But Matthew and the synoptics say that this other guy, Simon of Cyrene, carried Jesus' cross. Matthew 27:32 says, as they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. So what happened here? Who carried Jesus' cross? Church history has always answered this question by saying, what's not explicitly accounted for here is the level of physical brutalization Jesus had gone through in the 12 hours before they made him carry his cross. Jesus was beaten over and over again for 12 hours within an inch of his life before they finally said, and now we'll go crucify him. And so Jesus began carrying his own cross, but he made it a couple steps and he fell down. And this is what church history has always said about the walk of suffering that Jesus did. That's why the first 5 stations of the Stations of the Cross are all about this initial moment of who carried the cross of Jesus. Station 1 is Jesus is condemned to death. Station 2, Jesus takes up his cross. Station 3, Jesus falls for the first time. Station 4, church tradition says that Jesus' mother ran out and just went to her son while he was on the ground. And then station 5, Simon of Cyrene helps Jesus carry the cross. Simon of Cyrene helped Jesus carry something. And you can just imagine Jesus' face just smashing the dirt under the weight of this thing that he can't carry. And Simon comes over and Jesus says, this thing's too heavy for me. I need your help to carry it. I've spent the majority of my existence being totally able to carry all my own stuff. In fact, I'm almost never in this position. But here in this moment in my life, even though I thought I might be someone who was able to carry this for other people all the way, I found that this burden at this moment is too heavy for me. Would you help me carry it? If Jesus needs help, you and I need help. And if Jesus was able to ask for help, then God, you and I are free to ask for help as well.
Yeah.
And if after Jesus asked for help, there was new life on the other side of him for that, there's a new life for you on the other side. The good news of being able to go to somebody and say, I need help carrying this thing. Will you help me? This is what Paul is inviting the Galatians into. A replicating of what he calls the law of Christ. After a whole letter of trying to get them out from under the law of, I got all this stuff right, and so I'm good with God and other people, he invites them into the law of Jesus. The law of a totally different structure of being and a totally different set of norms. We're asking for help. It's not some unique, once-in-a-lifetime, shameful thing that you have to do when you're at your bottom, but it's just the normal way that Jesus has set up the order of the world. This world operates according to a totally different law, where help is something that those people have screwed up need. And there's like a false in-between sermon that could be preached here, where you say, and Jesus gives you the strength to ask for help when it's hard. Sure, that's true. But Jesus has created a world where asking for help isn't hard at all. There's a whole other world where where help is just the order of the day, where we all walk around in the honesty of the help that we need, and we love to participate in the law of Christ, and we help other people. God, we're just aching for that world. That world would come in and begin to encroach on all the falsehood and self-deception and burdensome ways that are given by this world that says, how about you just spend your life getting crushed by the idea that you got to carry all this stuff by yourself? And Jesus says, I'm just pulling one faithful person at a time. My planetary alignment into this reality where help is just the order of the day. Lay hold of it by faith and start to pull it in by the power of the Spirit. We can only do it by faith because it's not how this world operates. Did you catch that in the beginning of this passage with Paul? He says, but you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. The Greek literally just says, you who are spirit people. In other words, you can't do this unless you already have by faith laid hold of the power that is of that other place. The power that we call the Spirit. The category of transcendence that links us through God's personal presence to the way that things are now with God and the way that things are going to be in the future when Jesus has his way. Spirit people are able to do that. We've got to lay hold of that. By faith in Jesus, the one who said, I need help. I need help carrying this thing. When we do that, we come before God and other people, and we just simply say, God, I need help. Or, hi, trusted friend, or spouse, or counselor, I need help with this thing in my life. This is what's actually going on. I need help. There's really not much to do in response to the situation that Jesus has invited us into, but we do have to ask for help. This is what Paul says in the Galatians in verses 4 and 5. He says, but let each one test his own work. We need to examine our own work and our own lives and say, what's happening in here? And do I want to keep carrying all the stuff that I'm going through by myself? There's some interpretive question about what Paul is getting at when he says, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor, for each one will have to bear his own load. And some people interpret this and they say, see, Paul is saying that we should help other people carry their burdens, but in some sense, everyone carries their own stuff. And I just think, after a whole letter of Paul telling other people that you are not made right with God and other people by carrying all your own stuff and feeling great about all the stuff you're carrying by yourself, I don't think that Paul would then reverse course and say that right here. I think what Paul is saying is, examine what you're carrying in your life, examine how it's going, and examine if you want to just keep doing that by yourself for the rest of your life. Because if you do that, you will just carry your own stuff by yourself for forever. And then all you'll have to boast in is however well you did that. And some things you might carry well, that's fine. There are other things that we're not. We're not carrying well. Paul says, examine yourself. Find the places that you need help. And then you won't just be able to boast about the things in your life that you're carrying. You will gain thousands of things to boast about. Because we will all begin to boast about the things that are happening in everybody's life as we begin to help each other carry what we've been given to carry. When we help each other carry one another's burdens, we have so many things in the law of Jesus to boast about. Because we're all working together to carry the things that we've been given to carry in this life. We can receive the help that we need from God and from other people. And we can give other people the help that they need in life. If we just begin by saying, I need to find some people who I can say honestly what I am with. I need to be able to ask for help. And when we do that, we just participate in Jesus, who led the way in his most vulnerable moment, saying, actually, God can do new things in my life and in your life when we look over from the places that were crushed by our life and find someone and say, I need help. We need help from God, and help from God with people begins by asking for it. We need to ask for help in our lives.